Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm nervous, but I'm doing this. Welcome to the Authentically Attuned podcast. I'm going to be your host. My name is Esther, and you may or may not know that if you are finding this on Instagram, you probably know me as Extra Zen. If you're not finding me on Instagram, I'm actually very happy because you are the person that I'm trying to speak to. If you found me on Spotify or Apple podcasts, hi, welcome. And I'm going to try not to make this episode all over the place. This is just an introduction episode. So if it is all over the place, it's very authentic to me because that's normally how I speak. And if you know me in real life, you know that that's true. So I'm going to try to get right into this. And in this episode, these are the things I want to cover. I want to tell you why I decided to name this podcast Authentically Attuned. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I started this podcast. And I also want to talk about haters. What to do when you feel they are watching you, and basically how to be your authentic self despite that. Hopefully I actually do touch on all of those things. So starting with why I named this podcast the Authentically Attuned podcast. There are two reasons that I can say off the top of my head right now. And the first one is because I have been struggling with finding my voice. I have always known that speaking and writing is what I want to do, but because of the environment that I come from, I feel like I have been very held back, or should I say, I don't know how to say it, but basically like I've been suffocated. My voice has been suffocated. So since 2022, I would say December of 2022 to be exact, I have been working very, very hard on finding my voice and getting the courage to be my authentic self publicly, not just privately, not just in front of the people that I know personally, because that's not difficult for me. I'm okay and comfortable with myself, but being myself and putting myself out there has been very difficult for me. So through this journey, I think I now have a much stronger sense of who I am and my voice. And so the authentic part of the podcast title comes from that side of me. And the attunement part comes from me having a very strong relationship with my source. And even that is kind of like hard for me to say out loud. I feel like cringy. I'm cringing at myself, but it's my truth. I feel very attuned to, I want to use the word source only because, yes, God is who I believe in, what I believe in. But I know that religion is like a really touchy subject, and that's not something I want to talk about in this podcast very much, because even for me, it's a sensitive subject still, because I don't necessarily know what like I would consider myself. I wouldn't like put myself into any box religiously. I just know that I'm very attuned with God. I love the Bible. I pray. I love gospel music, and I feel like since very young I've had a strong connection to that energy. And so thankfully, that connection has brought me through a lot of difficult situations. And that's what led me to feeling the desire to share these situations, is that attunement. Me feeling very, very attuned to myself and my body, and knowing that it just doesn't feel right to keep everything that I've learned and everything that I feel like I understand now versus where I was like 5 years ago to myself. It just does not feel good in my body. I feel very stuck in my life because I am not doing this. It's like something stuck in my throat. So yeah, that's because I'm very attuned to myself, that I can sense that and I know that. So that's why I'm here. And that's one of the reasons why I named this podcast Authentically Attuned Podcast. Another reason that I named this podcast the Authentically Attuned Podcast is because the abbreviation, or okay, I'm gonna butcher this, but basically the first letters of the two words authentically and attuned are AA. And so that would also mean, for short, I can call this podcast the AA podcast. And that is significant to me because I have been struggling with my drinking, and that's something that I do want to touch on quite a bit throughout the episodes, is just kind of like how normalized it is to drink, and like how alcohol really can become like an outlet. So yeah, like I hope to be able to reach people who are also dealing with the same struggle with this podcast. And I've also been to AA myself, and that experience was very inspirational for me, like being in that environment where like people are just sharing and talking about their experience. Like I learned so much from strangers just from sitting and listening to them talk about their struggles and their experiences with alcohol and with life, because that's usually like hand in hand. So I hope that this podcast could be like a space like that. I find it difficult to share in meetings, but in the comfort of my own room and on my own platform, it's not as difficult. I'm hoping that this can be like a space where those who feel more comfortable listening for now can get that same experience that I've felt when I've gone to AA meetings. So I also want to share that this is not my first attempt at creating a podcast. If you are familiar with my platform on Instagram and you follow me or you've seen my page, you probably know that I already attempted to start a podcast last year, March of 2024. And I released 3 episodes. And I'm still very proud of those episodes. They are still available to listen to. But unfortunately, I lost access to that account. And that is a not very long, but I think unnecessary and irrelevant story for now. But I lost access to the page. And I actually feel like that has a lot to do with sabotage. I am going through a lot with toxic relationships in my personal life, so I think it has a lot to do with that, although I don't have any proof, so I don't want to say too much about that. But that is honestly another thing that pushed me to get back on this platform. It's just I feel like there are a lot of things that need to be said, and people don't want this information out there. And just seeing the extent that toxic people are willing to go to stop me from speaking the truth, it honestly just makes me feel more attuned to, speak, that feeling in my body, that feeling to release. Like, it just makes me feel like it has to happen. So my old podcast was called the Woman Thou Art Loose podcast, and it is still available. It's up on Spotify. I just can't access the account. So it's still available, and I do plan on re-uploading the 3 episodes that I had of this podcast on all my platforms. So on YouTube, Patreon, Substack. So wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, the other 3 episodes should be available depending on when you're listening to this. If you're listening to it as soon as I release it, they will be available soon. So I do plan on re-uploading those episodes, but this podcast was about, the foundation of it was supposed to be talking mainly about women. That's why I named it the Women That Are Loose podcast. It was supposed to talk about toxic relationships between women, so sisters, mothers, friends, aunts, whatever, just like in general, the like relationships between women, and just how a lot of it is influenced by just the toxic environments that we are exposed to and grow up in. And this podcast will also talk a lot about that, but honestly my perspective has like grown and expanded so much since last year, so there will be a lot of other things that are talked about on this podcast as well. I was actually planning on making this podcast anonymous, a little bit more anonymous, by like, for example, going under an alias name, and just in general not posting them on my current accounts, creating new accounts. I had different plans. And the reason I wanted to do this is because, like, I know now for sure that a lot of people, more than I expected, actually know who I am, and seem to be interested in the, like, I wouldn't call it drama, but the chaos that's going on in my life for not the best reasons. So yeah, that really bothers me, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but that really bothers me, and that's why I planned on being more anonymous with this like podcast. And this, like, the reason I decided against this is because I realized that the reason I wanted to be anonymous is not because I'm embarrassed of the things that I'm going to talk about or share, but because I felt guilt for how it might make my family look, or how it might make the people who I'm speaking about look. But through a lot of processing, this past 12 months alone, I have honestly went through a dark night of the soul or whatever. And I realize now that that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is not to try to protect people who obviously don't care enough about their own reputation to, like, have some morals about them, or like treat people with respect, have some self-control. Like, that's not my responsibility to protect people like that. I feel now that, like, I truly see that there's a toxic mindset that we are raised in as Haitians. I'm Haitian, and I was raised in a Haitian household. I was raised in a single mother household. But I know for sure, even in households with 2 parents, in the Black community, in the Haitian community, whether it's America or Canada, I personally live in Canada, and I've experienced the Haitian community in both Canada and America. And I see that we have been conditioned to basically, with this mindset of what happens in the home stays in the home. Don't talk about your family. And this is literally the mindset that protects abusers and predators. This is what keeps this type of stuff growing. Keeping this stuff in the dark is how you actually help it grow and protect the people who are doing it so that they can live another day to do it again. So definitely I will unpack so much more in all the following episodes, but I have been a victim to this mindset for my entire life. And this podcast is the beginning of me ending that cycle within my personal lineage. My children, my children's children, this will not be their reality, because I believe if somebody is harming you, if there is a behavior that's harmful to the point where it is putting your mental health, your physical health, like at stake and danger, that's not something that should be protected. That's not something you should stay quiet about. That's why you have a voice. And thank God we live in a society now, in a generation where there is the internet, where you can reach other people outside of your immediate environment. Because that's something for me that I'm extremely grateful for, like the internet, mainly because I have tried personally, since I was I accepted this mindset of like, yes, I don't want to talk about my family. I want to keep what's happening within the family. I've tried talking to both sides of my family, my father's side, my mother's side. I've tried talking to close friends, and I've just realized that it's deeper than what I could have ever imagined. Like, everybody is willing to stay silent. It's like the mob. It is like the mafia. Even if they are being affected by it negatively, they will stay silent because they do not want to go against the mob boss for fear of being exiled or whatever. And it's sick, it's toxic, and it is extremely codependent behavior. So I personally don't feel like I need any of these people. I struggled with even being able to say this out loud, but I don't feel like I need them to survive, because I understand truly that how God works, how the universe works, and what life is about. And I think the truth is more important than holding on to superficial relationships with anyone, even if that's family, whether it's your mother, your grandmother, your father, your cousin. And the reason for this is because if you try to listen to people, these people in these toxic environments, you just can't win. For a one personal example from my life is I went through a lot with my sister and my mother, to the point where I had to cut contact with my sister, and I have a very complicated relationship with my mother at the moment. And last year in February, the last time I spoke to my sister, we had a very big I can't use the word toxic again. A very chaotic conversation, argument, whatever. And in this conversation, I told her, I'm going to tell my story on my YouTube channel, because I've had a YouTube channel for years, and I've just been inactive for years. And so I told her that I was going to do that, and she told me, that's fine, go ahead, share your story, whatever, I don't care, basically. And as soon as I did, though, I just started posting captions on Instagram last year, and she didn't really take it very well, honestly. Cursing out my brother, like commenting very toxic things on my Instagram page. They're still up, by the way, so if you want to take a look at that, check out my Instagram page. Just very unhinged things. And that's honestly the beginning, and when I really realized you cannot take these people serious. You cannot listen to what they're saying and live your life by that, because they are literally operating from emotion, and the only emotion is usually anger, bitterness, like jealousy, whatever, just negative. And so I see now, like, why would I protect that? Not only protect it, but operate in the same way. I cannot. So basically, I personally feel like I have grown up in a cult. And I don't know. I know for sure there are other people out there who feel this way, but I don't know if there are any of them listening right now. I hope so. And if you are, I want you to know that you're not alone, because I have gone through feeling like I was alone in this. The beginning of this journey for me in 2022 was extremely traumatic, and feeling like I can't trust anyone that claims to love me because of this cult like mentality and this inability to speak up against things that are like obviously wrong, and this like mentality of protecting toxic behavior just so that they can operate in a toxic way and have that same protection. I hope that makes sense. But if you can relate to that, this is why I'm making this podcast. I hope that these following episodes really do make you feel seen, heard, all of it. And I want to quickly touch on what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things in this podcast, but mainly I'm going to be talking about toxic feminine females, toxic women, in relationships with them, how to handle it, my experiences with toxic women. I'm going to be talking about toxic men, specifically DL and down low men. I will be uploading an episode right after this specifically about DL men. I've already recorded it. So down low DL, I'm going to be talking a lot about that. And I'm also going to be talking about toxic relationships with mothers, the mother wound. I might have a few episodes where I'm specifically talking about narcissism, but honestly, not really. I have some posts on Instagram and TikTok where I talk about that. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And in general, I'm going to be talking about how to overcome these things, how to love yourself and find strength within yourself despite being betrayed, despite people trying to humiliate you, despite people trying to talk, bad about you, and all of these things. So, yeah, I know that was a lot. This is probably going to be a long episode. I am already past 30 minutes now for sure recording. So I really hope that you listened all the way through. And if you did, I appreciate you. I know that you're going to love this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I will talk to you in my next episode. Bye for now.